white allyship gone wrong. Have you heard this speech before?
I have borne 13 children and seen most all sold off to slavery. And when I cried out with my mother's grief, none but Jesus heard me. And ain't I a woman?
This speech by Sojourner Truth is widely considered one of the most well-known speeches in American history.
And ain't I a woman?
Ain't I a woman?
And it never happened. In 1851, a group of white women's rights activists came together in Akron, Ohio to talk about the systemic mistreatment of women. The problem is that the growing women's rights movement should have been called the white women's rights movement. I mean, they barely acknowledged the existence of black women. In fact, Sojourner Truth was the only black woman in attendance at the 1851 conference. And despite fierce opposition from the white women there, she was asked to give a speech. And she did not disappoint. The speech was brief, but insightful and poetic. And as such, a transcript of the speech was published in the Anti-Slavery Bugle in June of 1851, just months after she gave the speech. But this is where things get weird. The speech fell into relative obscurity until it was republished 12 years later in 1863 by this woman. That's Frances Gage, a well-meaning anti-slavery ally. The problem is that she didn't republish what Sojourner Truth actually said. She changed basically everything, adding a minstrel show-like Southern slave accent to the text.
I have borne 13 children, and I've seen most all of them sold off to slavery.
Sojourner Truth never said that. She was from the North and grew up around Dutch immigrants. She didn't have a Southern accent, and she only had 5 kids. Frances Gage essentially reimagined the speech in a caricatured slave talk voice. She erased the deeply thoughtful and theologically rich words of Sojourner in exchange for stereotypical jive. There's a valuable lesson on allyship here. Perhaps she thought she was communicating the words of Sojourner in a way that white people would receive. But marginalized people don't need interpreters, they need amplifiers. Sojourner Truth's actual words cut through the noise of stereotype and situated her as a thoughtful mouthpiece for the rights of all women. She didn't fit into the little box that society had made for her, because she was never meant to.
Black women have been at the forefront of various social justice movements, including the feminist movement. Figures like Sojourner Truth, circa 1860, Ida B. Wells, and Bell Hooks have fought for women's rights alongside advocating for racial justice. They have organized protests, written extensively on issues affecting Black women, and challenged both sexism and racism within mainstream feminist movements. Remember, we are all in this together.